Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast with myself, DJ Gigabyte, aka Dan, and my good friend David Persin. David, I'm not going to ask how your week's been, but hey, happy Father's Day. You're my last Father's Day call of the day.
Thanks, Dan. And I feel almost like a father to you at this point. So I appreciate the sentiment. I never really understand when it's Father's Day. Do you just go out and say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, or should it just be more towards you and your own personal father? Of course, mine passed last December, so I wished him one in heaven this morning. So I don't know. I don't know. I think since it is Father's Day, I think that I should take a minute to say thank you for wishing me happy Father's Day, Dan. And I should also say to those folks that are listening, maybe it's time for just a little bit of fatherly advice from me. Okay? Dan, can I do that?
You can do that.
Dan, I think what I want to say is maybe for you people that are watching, for you fine young men, most of you are fine young men. There's a few young women. I appreciate that as well. Nobody older than about 30 years old, maybe a few. Mindy, what are you, like 32 or something now? But what I want to say is put down the phones just every once in a while, and listen to the person you're having a conversation with. And it is going to make your life so much better. Those relationships are going to be better. Those conversations are going to be more in depth, less shallow. And then when something goes wrong, because you can actually hear about it, you're going to hear about it, and you're going to listen. You're going to say, "Hey, what would Uncle Dave do? He does accountability, transparency. So take accountability. What could you have done differently in that situation? And your life's going to be better for it." And I know that's a very high level fatherly advice, but what better day to deliver it than Father's Day? That's all.
There we go. Well, all of my Father's Day or messages have been over the phone rather than in person because all of the members of my family are still on the other side of the pond.
Yes, I don't think they're going to follow you anytime soon, Dan. So
No,
it was
I
nice
don't.
of you to reach out, though.
I very much doubt that. Anyway, because it's Father's Day, let's not waste any more time. Let's get this recording done so you can go and spend time with some of your children.
Yes, they need me to do that. I've already been criticized heavily for being out here doing this now, as well as the fact, let's just compound things, Dan, by telling you it's also my anniversary. So yeah, the
Oh, no.
wife's super happy today. Okay. Okay, move right on, Dan. Let's move
All
to
right.
those comments. I want to
Let's
get
get
to
through
them.
those comments. All right, first of all, we have a comment from Shadowless Jack. Says, "Thank you, gentlemen. So very grateful to have this content available in the community. Outstanding job as always. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that people are enjoying it, and we do try and, be kind of unique content."
And I want to say something to Shadowless Jack right here, or about Shadowless Jack, because that guy is a fine young man. All right. That gentleman, Shadowless Jack, reached out to me and said, "David, you've got a situation on your YouTube channel that you shouldn't have. And it's
Oh, it was
not good
Shadowless
for
Jack.
you."
Okay.
Yes, that was him. And he said, "I want to watch out for you. You're back. I got your back." And so, get a situation taken care of. And I, of course, had you step in and help me, Dan.
Yeah.
So the kindness of people that go out of their way for no benefit to themselves, truly appreciated. So my sincere thank you for helping out.
Yeah, and I know what that situation was because obviously I helped to sort it. So yes, very thank you a lot to Shadowless Jack because
Yes.
that was quite a bad situation. Hopefully it's sorted now, but if you do spot that again, Jack, be sure to let us know and we'll get it fixed.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have Lamar. Lamar is back. Lamar says, "I will drink enough coffee for both of you." Great, because last week we mentioned this is called Coffee Talk and neither of us drink coffee. He says, "Maybe we should nickname the podcast Potty Talks," and I don't want that to be a weekly thing. I'm okay with the death being every week, but we don't need bathroom talk every single week. Lamar says, "I
Although
personally decide." Oh,
Dan, understand one thing though. It's
yeah,
important to really understand that increases or changes in bathroom behavior are definitely potentially evidence of impending mortality. So just understand that they
yeah,
sort of go hand in hand. Okay.
they do a little bit. Okay, so
Okay.
that's the bathroom and the death talk covered for this week.
Yes, it is. We're good.
Lamar says, "Personally decided to stop collecting sets with the Sun and Moon era. Though expensive, I feel like I connect with the sets from back to base set before then." Yep, totally agree with a lot of that. Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield are some of my least finished sets just because of how big they were. And For Sun and Moon more than Sword and Shield, I don't feel like I connect with the era really at all. X and Y, I don't have a huge connection with the era, but just because of the sets being easier to finish, a lot of them are a lot closer to completion. I'll keep carries on with they have the Pokemon I know and love more than the newest set. Of course, I always pick up the new Ninetales as they come out, but that is all. He agrees that the One Ring is a money grab tactic and a chase card to sell more cards, which true it is, but Wizards of the Coast is a company. You know, we live under capitalism. Companies need to make profits. They have to use marketing techniques to sell their product. And yep, the One Ring is 100% a marketing technique, but it's proved a good one for both Wizards of the Coast and for all of these other companies who are offering to buy it.
Dan, that diatribe should indicate to most of us whether or not you're Democratic or Republican. Based on your capitalism discussion, I just don't know which one you are, and I don't know what it indicated. So I just want to throw that out there.
To say, on the political spectrum, I am so far left past the Democrats that I can barely see them.
All right, so then capitalism must reside over there in the left somewhere.
I acknowledge that we live under capitalism. I'm not going to. This is not the place to talk about the pros and cons of capitalism. I am simply acknowledging that that is the system that we live under, and that companies will act in a certain way because of the fact that we live under that system. Let's cut this conversation right here.
Economics 105 by Dan DJ Gigabyte Norton. So thank you for that, sir. Let me just say one more comment on this, and that is, I sure wish that I could make a selection and say, oh, I love the XY era and I love the Sun and Moon era. Yeah. And I think it's pretty clear for you that I need to love them all because I collect them all. I've got to catch them all.
Yeah. I mean, I collect them all. It's I think some of it for you is the fact that at least with sets, you've never had trouble finishing them because you just buy them complete from the lady who makes your sets up for you, as we shall continue to call her on this podcast. Whereas for me, because of as we've talked about, my more limited budget and stuff, I have to make decisions as to which sets or which cards I'm picking up. So I have to decide which of the sets appeals to me more because I have to choose to focus on certain ones. And I think that's true for a lot more people.
You know, I hear where you're coming from. I guess the problematic thing I would say is, couldn't you argue that you also make choices from a budgetary standpoint? And of course, I'm not speaking as a financial advisor in my professional capacity, Dan, but couldn't you make choices that alternatively say, maybe I won't buy an extra 23 boxes of something that Laura didn't actually earn for working to open on a podcast, and I'll put that money into completing some of the sets that I could use a little extra money for going back a bit?
I certainly could. I've said before that opening the boxes and stuff is not the best way to actually do it, but even outside of the videos, it keeps it more fun for me. You know, I have a lot of fun opening the boxes and seeing a lot of the cards for the first time and chasing those cards. And primarily, while I do obviously want my Pokemon collection to be as complete as I can get it, it is more about the fun for me. You know, if I was just buying a set, putting it straight in a binder, I wouldn't think about it as much. I wouldn't enjoy the set as a whole as much as if I'm actually opening it and then trading for those last few missing pieces that I find. And I found that in the past, when I've tried to do stuff like that and open a lot less and just buy stuff, I've become a lot less engaged with the hobby, and I've just been looking at other stuff and just haven't been spending as much time with it, and sort of dropped off a little bit, not fully, but somewhat. So I just need to make sure that it's at least still a fun hobby for me in order for me to keep my interest up.
Dan, I don't mean to be argumentative, especially on Father's Day, but I guess maybe the problem I have, Dan, is, let me give you just kind of maybe a little different example. So,
yeah.
Dan, you know, I've been married, I don't know, it could be nearing 30 years now, and I love my wife a lot, Dan. You know her. She's a nice lady. She keeps me grounded and lets me spend a few dollars on Pokemon. But, Dan, don't you think it'd be a little more fun for me if I could have lots of different women instead of just her? Sure, Dan, it would be more fun, right? I could leave a woman over here and then maybe finish her up in a couple of months and then go over here, meet a new one. That's not the point, Dan. I mean, sometimes you just want to get it done and hang in for what it's worth, and you know, respect the continuity of the relationship and the sets that you're collecting. And it doesn't always have to be more fun, Dan. Sometimes you can actually complete something, accomplish something, build on a foundational, premise that you've, invoked. So I don't know, Dan. This whole fun thing can be overrated. Maybe let it go and actually finish a set or two in your free time.
Well,
Okay.
I will say, because of the very nice pull rates of Scarlet Violet, I am coming to that point. The Scarlet Violet base set, I'm missing just a handful of cards, and that is just going to be a case of, if I can't trade for them at League, I'm going to go in and just buy them. It will be like $30 for me to finish Scarlet Violet. I just need to actually put the order in at some point. And then Paldea Evolved, I'm actually about to, again, we're talking about opening boxes. I'm about to open a second case because Laura got a lot of Scarlet Violet for working at events, and my local store had a ton of Paldea Evolved, but they ran out of Scarlet Violet. So I just said, can we swap a case for a case? So great, I get more Paldea Evolved. And once we're done with that, we're going to get to the point where, we do have tons of boxes and stuff lying around. So that's going to be used to go back and fill in some of those older gaps. I'm going to have more money because the newer sets aren't costing anywhere near as much to finish. So I will be doing that. And there are a lot of sets I am dipping a little bit into, and I'm finishing off, smaller goals. I'm tying it down to smaller goals and saying, okay, I finished this. But I'll put videos up and stuff when I actually hit goals. But we've talked about that for way, way too long. We're still only halfway through Lamar's comment. Lamar said he hopes that Pokemon never does the one-of-one serialized cards. I think I made it clear last week. I hope Pokemon never does any sort of serialized card. No matter how much they put the number to. Lamar also continued, the prize promo set is a very tough set for any collector to complete. Yeah, totally agreed. I hope that one or both of you can achieve a complete set. I mean, I'm sure David will at some point. We just need to actually pull the information together and get it figured out, which I have been working on a bit this week. Next up, Craig is back. I can't remember Craig's surname because for some reason YouTube has changed it so it shows you all of people's ats rather than their actual display name. So this comment shows it's from Craig20789, who is the Craig who has been commenting a few times. He said he rushed over to TCG Player to snag the 2016 Pikachu as soon as I mentioned it, but someone must have beaten him to it. But I think it was still on there last time I checked. So, Craig, I replied to that comment. If you haven't seen it, I put a link up to where it should be. If you're still having trouble, let me know, because our friend Matty did send me a link to some place we can maybe get you a couple. We'll try and help you out, Craig.
And of course, Dan, I found out that I did have the 2016 McDonald's set. Of course,
that's the other update we had to give.
Yeah, the confusion that I had about that was the different copyright dates.
Yeah.
So as you posted in the last video, when you put that kind of upside, I guess not upside down, but that M-looking logo, it indicated to me that I could look in the binder and actually see that I had the set. So because I can't, Dan, I can't say I have the most comprehensive collection and say, oh, by the way, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That's a falsehood, and I'm not going to put up with it even for myself. So I have the 2016 McDonald's set. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, and if you didn't, we'd have probably found it within a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'd have been able to track it down somewhere if you didn't have it, but luckily you do, and we don't have to do that.
Hashtag no excuses. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
All right. Next up, we have Professor Birch said, would love to know how David is storing his collection. He said, is the majority in slabs or binders? And the majority is not in slabs. And does David take the time to look through his collection and try to appreciate the fruits of his labor? And does David plan to showcase his collection on Instagram? All right, well, let's start with, why don't you talk a little bit about how you store the collection?
Horrifically. Barely can figure out what's in what. They're in binder pages. That's what they're in. They're just in binder pages, in binders. They're not individually set in binders. It could be 5 sets in a single binder, maybe 10, maybe, reverse hollows, a few hollows, a couple of extra hollows, some non-hollows. So yeah, they're just stored. That's what they are. But you know what? It's okay, because I, at one point, used to store all of my higher dollar cards in hard card holders. And I didn't like that because you couldn't look at them. That's the whole slab thing that I don't like, the extra storage and the... So I took them out and I put them in binder pages, and now I actually can thumb through and enjoy them when I choose to. So,
yeah, I know a lot of your trophies are still in the actual containers that they give them away at Worlds. So for people who don't know, when they give the trophy cards away at Worlds, they're in some sort of hard, quite thick plastic case. For a few years, it was in a very thick case, and then in
acrylic holders,
acrylic holders, and then inside a velvet lined closing box They had that for a few years. And then there's some other ones where it looks sort of like a thicker top loader, but it loads from the bottom, and then the bottom has a stand that like clips on, so it stands and displays it like a trophy. So there's a few of them I think you still have in those.
And I was thinking about that last night for some reason, and I really don't want to keep them that way. Like I like
Yeah,
consistency to some degree. So
yeah. And
eventually I
Pokemon just
probably will
hasn't
put
been.
those in hard card holders or something, so at least I
Yeah,
can thumb through all of them. Ideally I'd put them in binder pages, but they just may be too expensive to take that
yeah.
risk
I
with
think I
binder pages.
think so. I think they're
Yeah.
too expensive for binder pages. And
And
then
well, and let me just throw something else in here. You probably would know this, Dan, and I don't know this, but I'd have to imagine that at this point in time, that storage has evolved to a point where there must be hard card holder binder pages.
yeah, there are.
And
You can.
yeah, so that would be another way for me to do it, even if it's not 9 per page, maybe it's only 4 or something. That would be a nice way, especially 4 because there's never more than 4 trophies from any given year,
Yeah,
for me to actually do that. So that's something that I've been thinking about as well.
I think most of the top loader binders I've actually seen are 12 per page. So it's 3 rows of 4 across. So they're slightly longer binders, but um, there's
I
a lot
see.
of
Okay.
regular sets to do that. So that would be nice as well because you could have like the 1, 2, 3, and then in the later years have the 1 through 4 straight across
Yes.
would be nice. I'll send you some
Right.
links to those later, and you can maybe get one picked up.
Okay.
Yeah. And last question was, yes, did you plan to showcase your collection on Instagram? I mean, some of your collections on Instagram. I guess more of it was on your YouTube channel in the few videos that you did.
Yeah, and one of the things that one of the reasons we do these coffee talks, Craig, is because Dan has been kind enough to do all the legwork. My reason for doing coffee talks specifically is my way of saying thank you to my wonderful friend Dan, who has spent years helping me out build my collection. And all of you that know Dan know what a wonderful, cool guy he is, one of the top guys in the hobby. So
Oh,
with that and with this, it allows me to be able to do that as well as not have to go through all of the rigmarole of a 60-something-year-old trying to, deploy the technology to put all my stuff on Instagram or go back onto YouTube. So, which life gets in the way of doing all that. So this is kind of a win-win both ways.
and I have no life, so I can do this.
Yeah, there's no debate on that, my
Yeah.
friend. Go put the dogs are away. The dogs are
Dogs
put
are in
away.
bed. Yeah, they're in bed.
Okay, good.
They're always
All
in
right,
bed when
good.
we're recording.
Okay.
Yeah, if next time I'm at your place, if I'm there for a bit longer, we'll maybe try and get some nice photos of all the trophies and stuff together. We can maybe,
Yeah.
either for future coffee talks or for Instagram or something.
Yeah, and who's very good at this. I'll just say one other thing because we like to mention him at least once his podcast is Rusty at TCA Gaming. He does every day. I think he puts something out and puts a picture of something and puts a small
Yeah,
comment just to kind of stay in constant contact with his followers. And
yeah.
and the reason I bring him up because my first message this morning was from Rusty, who said Happy Father's Day, and I just sent back and said, you know what, thanks, you made my day. I really appreciate it. So,
Nice.
so yeah, there's ways to do it in a just a quick fashion that maybe someday I guess when I hire my own social media director, I'm sure Rusty doesn't have one. I will be able to do that, or maybe Daniel just do that for me. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm running the Coffee Talk one, and I'm running mine, and I probably have to help Laura with hers at some point. I will say as
Okay.
well, you said this is all, just to help me. I was thinking the other day, I think I've worked out why you're really doing this. Because we had the conversation about you selling your collection when, you pass on. And we talked about how we needed to find that person who both is a multimillionaire to afford it and would keep the collection together. I think your secret goal all along is you need me to be a multimillionaire before you die because you need me to buy the collection and keep it going. I think that's really the goal, is to try and get me YouTube famous and get me to be a multimillionaire so I can keep the collection going.
I am completely good with all of that, Dan.
Well, hopefully if more people watch, we're slowly on our way. We made double digits of dollars last month.
I like that. I was going to
Only
ask
about.
you. I wanted to ask you on the broadcast. Are people still watching? Are
Oh
people
yeah,
still
people still.
tuning in a little bit?
Yeah, people are still tuning in.
Okay, all right.
All right, Ponga Collectibles is next, just saying, commenting for the algorithm. We appreciate that. Everyone should do that. Just leave a comment for the algorithm.
Let me say something right here. I'm trying to fit in every time you talk by something that's relevant so I don't got to talk about it later in the broadcast and we just cover it, okay? Thanks for having a beverage there. I forgot mine again. Dan, so let's do this week, okay?
Right.
Let's do the following. If you comment on our broadcast today, on our podcast, if you put a comment in our podcast, you're going to be entered in a drawing for me to send you some kind of special card or pack or whatever. I'm going to send you something for free. What do you care what it is? It doesn't matter. If somebody sent me something for free, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't even care if it was just a Champions Path pack. Maybe it was just an old Mew Black Star promo, fill in the gap. I don't know, 865. I don't know what it was. So, but I'm going to send you something. I'm going to select, I'm going to randomize a generator, random generator, pick out a number, and I'm going to send you something, okay? But here's what you got to do. No, you can't just comment. You can't just comment. You have to, I want you to climb into my DMs. You got to go to Instagram at dperson1, and you got to put the following code in there. Don't put it out in the comments. You have to DM me. The code is 65. That's an Alakazam number from the original 151. I saw that in my tops things. Okay,
All right.
so I was doing my tops cards. It's windy out here. Hold on, guys. Stop with the wind. Mother Nature, I'm talking. So basically, here's what it is. One, you comment on the video. Put in something. Put one sentence, okay? Say like Dan's hair looks as good as normal, okay? And then number two, you have to DM me on Instagram at dperson1 and just give me the code 65. If you put 65 in the comments, then I negate you from the drawing. You'll be entered in a drawing. The more people that we get in the comments week to week, the more I'm going to add gifts to send, and we'll just see how that works after this week. Okay? Does that sound good, Dan? Can we do that?
You can do that. You can absolutely do that. I'll. Yep, we can. That works. I mean, fine by me.
Okay, good.
I guess what we'll do.
I needed to get it in early enough, Dan, where people were still watching. Okay.
Yeah, I guess what we'll say is we can pick the winner right before we record the next episode. So have your comments and DMs David in by like Sunday morning, because we record about Sunday midday usually. So I guess have them in by Sunday morning for a chance to be in the drawing, and then we'll announce who the winner is in next week's episode.
Perfect. And I need people to climb into my DMs because every celebrity has people climbing in their DMs, and that's why I'm doing it. Dan doesn't need people in his DMs. He doesn't need that kind of frivolous activity. He's busy enough. Okay, go ahead, Dan. Move on. Are we gonna ever finish the comments, Dan?
Yeah, we're still in the comments. We keep getting sidetracked. All right, the next one is from Darufin Draws. Yeah, that's Laura again. First of all, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Laura right now for doing a lot of stuff for the podcast over the last couple of weeks. I've sure you've seen the logo and stuff, and she just redesigned. She did all the original thumbnails back when we didn't know how this was going to go and how it would go week to week, but she's just remade all of the old thumbnails so we have like consistency and stuff across the podcast, which we're very appreciative of. Anyway.
Oh, I am. Let me just say thank you. She's a very special lady, despite her, very crazy ties to a very small bear. Okay.
Yeah. She says, David, if you wanted me to Photoshop you as an old guy, all you need to do was ask. You can probably expect something to pop up on the socials eventually. Let's see. We'll put a pin in that one for now. Someone mentioned being too nervous to say hi to Dan at an event, and he missed an opportunity to tell everyone that that's how we met. He's not scary in real life, I promise. That is actually true. Me and Laura had briefly spoken through Facebook, and then hadn't spoken in like a year, and she came up and introduced herself to me at Worlds one year, and she recognized me because I was wearing the DJ Gigabyte hat that I used to wear, which I can't wear at the moment because I have to wear headphones for these recordings, but yeah, that is actually how me and Laura met in person, which then led to us dating like a year later and getting married not long after that. So yes, I've now told that story, but I will say that doesn't track. If you come up and say hi to me at Worlds, we almost certainly will not get married. That was kind of a one-time thing. Just to make sure everyone's expectations are in the right place.
Smart, Dan. Smart.
Yeah. She said, Dan got something right. There is, in fact, only one Eevee available to the player in the first generations of games. Well done. It's a very comment, but at least I got it right. She said she can also confirm that the Burger King cards are gold-plated only. We talked about them, not whether or not they were full metal. I mean, I assumed they weren't full gold. I assumed they weren't gold bars, but we didn't know if they had a metal core, but apparently it's plastic with a gold plating. And she said, David, you should come out to Columbus for NAIC. I mean, I doubt you're going to do that. I think we've already spoke about the fact that you're not coming to NAIC this year. But she says, it isn't exactly the spectacle Worlds is, but I could teach you how to play the card game. So to anyone else who is going to be in Columbus for NAIC, if you go to it's either Play Lab or First Step. I think it's called First Step. Laura will be there and she'll teach you how to play.
Very generous offer. Of course, that's how she is. Very nice. Thank you.
Well, it's very generous, and also it's the thing that she's contractually obliged to do for Pokemon for that weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Mertz Collectibles is back. Says, David, do you collect any non-TCG Pokemon items or even sealed packs?
Do I know what that even... Last time I answered that question, Dan, I screwed the whole thing up, so...
Yeah, a little bit, because last time we talked about non-TCG and you weren't sure if Topps cards fit into TCG.
So can you answer Mertz's questions for me, Dan?
Yeah, I can do. So yeah, David has some non-TCG items. He's lately got into Topps cards, which are non-TCG cards. And then further stuff like the plushies and stuff, it tends to not be a collection where you're trying to get everything. You just pick up plushies and stuff as and where you like them. For sealed packs, I know you still have all that original sealed pack collection from when you bought that huge collection back in the day. That was, I think, one of every pack with every artwork up to about Sandstorm-ish. I think it went just into the start of Generation 3. And then, I think for recent sets you do a sealed booster box of every set, right? But you don't do individual packs still.
Right, and if he's asking about sealed packs, if Mertz is asking, then my answer would be part of my collection is actually one sealed booster box.
Yeah.
Of all of the booster boxes going back to the beginning, as well as the theme decks until they turned into battle decks. So
yeah.
So I have sealed copies of the theme decks and the booster boxes all the way back to the beginning as well.
Yeah. And then he also said, Dan, do you remember when I had you for Secret Santa and drew that absolutely horrendous-looking Vaporeon? I do remember when you had me for Secret Santa one year, and I still have that Vaporeon drawing around somewhere. It will be in amongst all of the nonsense behind me that hasn't been sorted for 3 years. Next up, your average player says, Dan 2023, a quote, don't drop your cats. I stand by that. I said it last episode. Don't just drop cats for no reason. Sometimes you have to put them down, but don't drop them and try and make them not land on their feet. It's very cruel.
That was my favorite comment of all the comments. Every time I read it and every time you say it, it still makes me laugh. I love it.
Well, it's if you take nothing else away from any episode of this podcast, it's
don't drop cats.
Don't be dropping your cats trying to make them not land on their feet. Just let them be.
Oh, man.
All right, next comment is from Matty. It says, Matty Tomo. I'm assuming that's Matthew Thompson. Like I said, YouTube changed stuff around. Awesome and insightful episode, as usual. I have the McDonald's 2016 set already, and it's all mine. Well, as we just talked about, David does already have it. Matty has actually been... I said Matty was showing me some links to where we can maybe get some, which I'll talk with Craig about later. He says, I once saw David, but he ran past me for the bathroom. Maybe he hadn't done his Kegel exercises that day. Maybe.
Leave it to Matty to come up with some way of interweaving all comments into a witty comeback. Nice job, buddy.
And then final comment from Maverick Nate of Bulbapedia fame. Those prize packs have been a disaster for documentation as well. Yeah, believe me. Not a fan of them personally. Honestly, Nathan, once I get where I'm at, I'll send you some links and we'll message about it probably.
I didn't know that he was from Bulbapedia fame, so, it's nice to hear that. I, of course, wouldn't know that, so.
Yeah, Nathan for a while ran the TCG side of Bulbapedia. I'm assuming it is the same person with the same username, and I'm not just now talking to a random stranger as though they're a friend of mine. Yes. But Nathan used to live in Columbus, so was really close with Laura for a while, and the fact that they both collected the Pokemon coins that you get in various products, so they did a lot together on the documentation. Nathan now lives in Japan, so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We'll be seeing him at Worlds. All right, well, that is the end of the comments. So some went slightly sidetracked, but it's finally over. And David, what we're calling, you said last week people know what time it is. Maybe they've learned. Tell the people what time it is.
Dan, I think they know what time it is right now. It's time for Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B, where we pose a series of options to Dan DJ Gigabyte Norton and ask him for which one he would choose. Dan, you
Yep.
have 10 seconds for each optional pair. Pick one. Describe your rationale, should you or don't. I don't care.
Yep.
Don't take any more than 10 seconds, Dan. And that's pretty much how the rules go. Of course, if you take more than 10 seconds, a Pokemon judge may immediately insert themselves into the game and you may be disqualified therein and thereafter. Okay?
Okay, I understand.
All right. Here we go, Dan. Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B? Dan, Marvel or DC?
Marvel overall, I think. I really like Spider-Man.
Okay. And by the way, if anybody disagrees with any of this, just lambaste the heck out of them in the comments. Okay. Dan, Mother's Day or Father's Day?
Father's Day, because Mother's Day is a different day in the UK to the US. They're like 8 weeks apart or something, and it's always really confusing for me. So I prefer Father's Day because it's the same.
Really good answer, Dan. I think you came in right under the 10 seconds.
All right.
Dan, Vaporeon or Vaporeon VMAX?
Regular Vaporeon.
Dan, Taylor Swift or Dua Lipa?
Taylor Swift.
Dan, Nice Surprise or Prank?
Nice surprise. Pranks are horrible sometimes.
Wait till you find out what I've got planned for you. Sorry,
Oh,
Dan.
good.
Dan, Vin Diesel or The Rock?
The Rock, because I watched a lot of WWF when The Rock was the guy in WWF.
Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Okay, sorry, Dan. Dan, hot baths or cold showers?
If I had to pick, hot baths, but hot showers is actually the main thing I use.
Dan, Paldea Flames or Obsidian Evolved?
Right, well, neither of those are real.
One must be selected, Dan.
The first one.
Paldea Flames. I want everyone to hear it. I'm not going to let you. This is going to be immortalized forever. Okay,
All right,
you pick
Paldea
Paldea.
Flames.
Okay.
Paldea Flames.
Dan, getting a good deal or overpaying for cards you need?
Getting a good deal is nice. Sometimes I will overpay for cards that I need, but I always prefer getting a good deal.
Dan, county jail or federal prison?
Well, I've never been to either. Let's say federal prison.
Boy, you are a hard butt. Okay. Dan, cotton or chino?
Cotton? Okay.
With a question mark. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Dan,
don't
here's
know
our.
some of these.
It's fine, Dan. I'm not going to check your pants.
Yeah.
Dan, here's the number one for the week. Dan, 2,348 or 12,348?
12,348? I'm trying to think of what those could relate to. I have no idea what that even is.
Dan, base set fourth print or fossil third print?
Fossil, but I know we're getting onto those, and I'm going to have a strong talk about those names. But I'll go for the fossil.
Okay. Dan, that's the end of Trainer Deck A or B. Thanks for playing this week. And Dan, that's going to lead us into what I wanted you to talk about this week, which is actually those two sets, which unbelievably and unbeknownst to me, I had no idea existed until just a couple of years ago. After collecting for 20 years, who knew there was a fourth set base print out of the UK and a third set fossil red logo box stuff. So I thought it would be interesting if you might just spend a few minutes talking about how those sets relate and why they were maybe not so well known until just the last couple of years.
Sure. So basically what this is for base and fossil, the final print runs of the sets had the copyright date on the bottom of the card changed. All earlier prints said copyright 1999. Last prints said 1999 to 2000. I'm assuming it is just because it went over the new year before that print was done. So for base set, all cards exist. Full 102 card set exists with that date change. For fossil, all of the non-holos exist, and only the Zapdos holo exists. I'll get onto that a little bit more in a moment. The base set one, it was basically a full-size print run. but it was mainly shipped to the UK and to Europe. People call it like the UK printing, and that's not entirely correct because of the fact that it's just that's where most of it was sold, but it wasn't printed in the UK. I don't believe it's just that that's where most of the shipment went because of the fact that most America had a lot of the cards, and Europe had been struggling to get the cards, I believe, for a while. So they were shipping to other places outside the US because the US got priority on earlier stuff. It's also called
All right,
fourth print.
so just one sec. So
Yeah,
so we're talking about fourth print base set. So there was I'm sorry, was first print or shadowless first? Which was the
well,
actual first print?
let's get on to that. So base set, and I hate when people call it fourth print because it isn't the fourth printing of the set. So base set, guy who used to work for Wizards called Mike Boozer. Username Dark Master Trainer Mike was well known when Wizards ran Pokemon and was still somewhat active in the community when it switched to Nintendo, even though he wasn't personally involved with it. He revealed how many printings base set had, and it had 8 print runs of base set. We don't know how many print runs other sets got, but he said definitively base set got 8 print runs. Now, the first print run was shadowless, and then part of that print run had the first edition stamps applied to it. So a lot of people don't realize this. People think they printed first edition and then printed shadowless. They didn't. They did one print run, and some of it got the first edition stamp added later. The first edition stamp is a stamp in the same way that, when you see like staff stamps and stuff on cards, it's something that was placed on after the printing. The first edition symbol was not printed on when they were going through the regular printing facility at the factory. I mean, I say they were probably done at the same facility, but it was like they printed the cards up and then it went to another machine that puts the first edition stamps on, basically. So first edition and shadowless came from the same print run. Print runs 2 through 7 were then all regular unlimited print runs. And then print run 8 was when they changed the copyright date to add the 2000. So it's the 8th printing of base set. It's the 4th variation of base set, but it's not the 4th printing. So that's why I really hate the name. I've always used the name base 2000 because that's what a few people use that name for a while, and I think that more accurately describes what it is because it's also telling you what the change is, and that the change is that it has that copyright year 2000 added.
Okay, so and I want to just go back and reiterate what you said. So, and that change, base 2000, those copyrights are across all of the cards in the set, correct? All 102.
Correct.
And how would you talk about their rarity from what you've seen either in the commons or the hollows relative to the, of course, unlimited we won't compare to, so let's compare it to first edition or shadowless or whatever.
So it does seem to be, if you're trying to pick them up, it can be harder to find them than first edition and shadowless, but I don't think they're actually rarer. I think there are just fewer people who know about them, so there's going to be a lot more of them in collections, just mixed in with unlimited cards. Whereas first edition and shadowless, people have known for a lot longer to be on the lookout for those and to separate those out. So while they are, I believe, more difficult to find, I don't think they're rarer than first edition or shadowless overall. I think there are more copies out there. It's just way less people are going out of their way to look through their collections and separate them out.
Well, so I was just going to say, for me, because I want people to comment, I've given them a reason to comment if they actually want to. Maddie, you might, from his perspective, being in that area as well. Like, I didn't find that to be the case. Like, I really found them when I was in the process of searching for them to be more difficult to find. And your comment, Dan, would sort of imply that, well, there's so many locked away in collections, but I never know really what's locked away in a collection. And these days, with so much more information out there, one might infer that people would have figured this out by now, even when people aren't necessarily looking for them as much. So I definitely want to hear from other people who might think they are more rare, or they more, especially if they have information like related to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ever going to get a definitive answer because
right.
while base 2000 was one full print run, and First Edition and Shadowless were part of a print run each. We don't know if print runs were the same size consistently across all 8 printings. That's just information we're never going to definitely have. I just want to talk a little bit about my experience in how I found them, but then how I've also, when I've been looking at people's collections, I will occasionally see some 2000 cards in there that they didn't know about. It's very rare that I'm looking through a collection and see that they just have some first editions in there and didn't notice.
Makes sense.
Last thing to note, if you are opening a base 2000 box, because you can tell from the information on the back of the box whether it's a 2000 box, all of the non-foils in that box will be base 2000. The foils might not be. The foils are very, very difficult to find, especially like compared to the non-foils of the same set, because not every base 2000 box had base 2000 foils. I believe it would have been, if they did the print run, if they had just some foils left over from whatever the last unlimited print was, print run 7, whatever, they would have put those in and then and then printed up the new foils to go into the sheet. And the newer foils that they had to print up would have had the change date, but you are not guaranteed to get the base 2000 hollows out of a base 2000 box. That's one thing to definitely remember if you're looking into those.
So maybe that's what you meant more. Maybe I just presumed you really meant all of the cards, and your discussion might have been more that you meant the non-hollow cards were kind of similar in their quantity.
I guess I think that the non-hollow cards are there's probably a bigger quantity definitely than first edition or shadowless, whereas the hollows might be a lot closer in rarity or similar rarity. It's worth noting as well, because a lot of people go heavily by grading companies. Grading companies recognized this variant for the first time just a couple of years ago, compared to Shadowless and First Edition, which I think all of them were separating out First Edition from way back in the 90s, and then Shadowless got added a few years later, early 2000s, something like that, and then it's only just been a couple of years later that people would have 1999 to 2000 accepted on the label. So even if you're looking at graded reports, there's probably an amount of unlimited ones that show up in the report as unlimited, but are the 2000 variant.
Okay. Are you going to move to fossil? Because I'm going to ask you one more question about base.
Sure, ask me one more question about base, yeah.
So, well, I don't know if I'm going to ask a question, but I'm just going to point out that as a collector, that means that I've got to look for 4 different sets. And I do have those 4 different sets, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But because of the repetitive nature of the test prints, in my mind now, and this continuing evolution of information, we now have also the Cosmos Hollow and the Disco Hollow. So I know we've revisited this, but I think it's important. Those variations as well. And of course, the uncut sheets and stuff allow the Disco Hollow ownership, the Cosmos Hollow, not so much. So I'm always going to put it out there for anybody that might start watching as this thing grows. I still need the Cosmos Hollow holographic cards, right?
Yeah.
From the first, test prints, in case anybody ends up getting those sheets and cutting them up and wants to come towards me to see if I might be interested in buying that set as well.
Worth noting on that, though, apart from Machamp, which got a Cosmos reprint in the base set 2 starter kit, but still is from base set, all of the other Cosmos foils, plus the Disco foils, were test print only. They never actually had any sort of release, whereas the 2000 copyright date print was released. It was sold in packs and boxes.
Correct, yeah. Those are almost unauthorized variants in a certain way, versus the 4. Correct. Yes. Good point.
Moving on to Fossil. So Fossil, we don't know how many print runs there were. Like people call it again third print, but I disagree with it being called that. Basically, I would only refer to it as Fossil 2000. This one, as I said, all the non-foils exist and only one foil exists. So there was a deck which was called, or a gift box called, I think, Thunderstorm gift box. There are a couple of different names, different places around the world. That had a deck in it, like basically a theme deck, and it had some cards from base, some from jungle, some from fossil. It had 5 cards in it from fossil, which were Holo Zapdos, the non-holo rare Raichu, Golduck, Psyduck, and I think Energy Surge had one of the trainers. Those 5 cards had an updated copyright date. They were 99 to 2000. Those are pretty easy to find because, like I said, that gift box was sold everywhere. It was a very popular gift box. For a long time, people just assumed that those were the only 5 cards that had that updated copyright date. Also worth noting, the jungle cards in that deck do not have the changed copyright date. The jungle cards are still just regular jungle cards. Then it was about 2013. Friend of mine, Charlie Herlocker, and another friend of mine as well, Sammy, they were looking into some cards that were coming up for sale from Australia. They saw them on eBay. It was just a fossil listing, and it was other cards from the fossil set with this updated copyright date, 99 to 2000. They did a lot more research into it. Basically, everything I've got on this, I learned from them at some point. It turned out that Australia did its own printing of fossil at some point. These ones, I believe I'm correct on this in saying this last print run was actually printed in Australia and only distributed in Australia. The hollows were shipped over from the US. The US had extra hollows, shipped them to Australia. Australia printed the non-hollows, and Australia packaged them and sold them. That is the story, as I understand it, of how these things were printed. Anyway, because of that, because the hollows were shipped over from the US, they were the original unlimited ones. They were the 99s. And the rest of the cards were the 2000 variants. And when David talked about the red logo box, that was what these came in. You'll have seen sometimes packs or boxes of fossil where they have the word Pokemon in red rather than in yellow. For people watching the video, there'll be pictures on screen right now. Jungle also has these variants in boxes, but they don't have any different cards in them. Whereas
I just want to clarify, because the way you said that, it was a double entendre. So Jungle has the variants not in the boxes, but in the way the boxes look. The Jungle has a red logo on the top of the box, just like the red Fossil logo box, but yet it has no difference in the cards inside in that Jungle box.
Yeah.
And why do they have that variant on the way the box displays?
I believe it was something to do with preventing fraud, is what they said at the time. I think they were doing a lot of different tests on stuff to prevent boxes being realistically copied and fakes made. And I think it was just one of those few things that they tried out for a while. I think they had the Australian team or whatever it was try that out. That's what I've heard. Obviously, that's a internal Wizards of the Coast decision somewhere, was to try that out. In terms of rarity, so other than those cards that came in that Thunderstorm deck, Fossil 2000 is rare. It is way rarer than first edition Fossil. It took me a long, long time to put this set together. I think grading companies are now accepting that as well as the base 2000, so I think more people are aware of it now, at least. But it is a very, very difficult one to find. I'll say I was aware of base 2000 a long time before. Obviously, I was aware of the Fossil 2000. I remember seeing it in some different eBay listings and stuff, so I think there was a lot of people aware of it, just most people didn't really care about it.
And Dan, the just roughly, what is the number for getting those first few cards? Or the Zapdos or whatever, I think you said. What's the first number? It's going to be in the early 20s somewhere?
I think it's 16 or 17.
Okay, from then on.
Yeah, well, luckily the Holo Zapdos is the last Holo. Yeah. So I think the Zapdos is number 15, so I think it's number 15 onwards, with number 15 being the only Holo, and then 16 on being the non-Holos.
Okay. For those that are watching, if you have an interest in owning the cards, the non-commons or whatever, not the non-commons, the non-holos, I may have an extra set or two in light play condition, brand new, but just sometimes they show some white. So you can reach out to me for that as well. I used to have that on my website, but I sold the few sets I had from a box that was opened, and I And I do have a seal box in my collection in case folks like to know what I have in my collection.
Yeah, you have the red logo fossil box in the collection.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great information, Dan. I like to learn about that and hear it again. Two sets that just were not well known, as you said, until the last few years, and
Yeah.
hopefully, as people find out more about them, especially the vintage collectors that like to go back, may
Yeah.
create continued interest. So,
I'll say I have the fossil 2000 set done. My base 2000 set, I'm only missing one non-foil, but then I'm missing almost all of the foils.
okay.
But
And
Laura does have a base 2000 set complete.
of course she does, Dan. There's certain things go without saying. Okay, I'm
Well,
sad for you that we all know that Laura's got something you don't own outside of a handful of trophy cards. So,
yeah.
okay, congratulations, Laura. You're still leading no matter what he says.
Her base
Dan,
set binder looks. I was gonna say her base set binder looks quite nice because she's missing a few first edition cards, but she got one of the 4-row binders. So instead of putting first edition then Shadowless whatever, she put it so each row is one of the 102 cards with the 4 different versions. It does
really
look real nice. Like normally, I totally disagree with binders looking like that and binders not just being in number order of a set, but that one I will concede does look really nice.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Really, really cool. All right, I'd like to move on and talk about my experience of the week that just depressed me heavily.
Okay.
I say to my wife, I go, why does something this little bother me so much and literally ruin my entire day? And whose fault is it? I don't know. We'll talk about that. But I just, you know what I'm going to talk about, Dan, even though I haven't told you yet. But because you were there with me when it happened and on the social media somewhere. So you let me know very kindly that the Pokemon Center website was putting the 151 ETBs, Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs out there.
Yeah.
And I tried to go in and buy it. And of course, everyone knows. And if you don't know, I absolutely hate Pokemon Center's website. I don't like that they can't figure out how to allocate. I don't like that they call my webs when I'm in there. They call me they block my web browser because they think I'm a bot because I try to go in a few times and try to buy one. And of course, I couldn't buy it. I didn't get in time. You got your boxes, Dan. I didn't get mine. And so why would I care? Why would I care? So I care because I had just been putting away one box of 4 of these ETBs for the last several sets. I just bought Obsidian Flames and I bought Paldea Evolved and whatever was before it. I just bought one box. I thought it'd be fun to put it away. And so we talk about accountability, and I'm going to get into this in a minute, but who's at fault? Why was I upset? Should I have been upset? So all day long, I'm depressed because I can't, that's done. That's, sure, there might be another wave if we're lucky, but usually when something's this popular because it's vintage and 151, very hard to get in. You just have to get lucky. I can't use bots to do it like you're not supposed to. And then I'm going to read you what I read on one of the Facebook groups later that day. Here's what it said.
Okay.
This was from, I'm putting his name out there. Not his fault. I don't care. Okay. His name is Matthew Graves. So Matthew Graves said in the group, I was able to get 44, found a dummy to unload all 44 on for almost 5 times the price I'm getting here. Already went out and pre-sold the 44 boxes. I saw them out there for $200 a box or whatever, to the dummy that he found. So should we blame Matthew Graves? Why? Why should we blame him? It's not his fault. He bought them and he resold like any good capitalist, as Dan said in the beginning of this broadcast, would do. Should we blame the Pokemon Center? Sure, we could, because they can't seem to get the allotments right. Even Best Buy, that's taking pre-orders on the 151 premium collection or something, supposedly said limit 1. They weren't out there when I looked. They would just said coming soon. I could have missed that one too. Or should we blame me? Should I blame me? I take full responsibility. I got to take full responsibility because I always do. So why would you take responsibility, David? Because I'm the one that set my own expectations in motion that I could own a case of 4 Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs from each set that was going to come out. Well, that'll never happen because the Pokemon Center is garbage when it comes to their ability to allocate and prevent people from getting extras and not call you a bot when you're not a bot. That's my fault. And so this morning when I was getting ready to do this, I thought, you know what, as always, it's my fault. I should have never expected that an entity like this that's already shown their hands and their inability to allocate in a good way would allow me to do this. So I made myself frustrated by expecting I might actually get these, and now I won't get one. Unless I could go buy it for twice the price, I guess now. It's $120 was the cheapest one I saw instead of 60. And they'll probably go up or down in time. But so I just wanted to vent about that for a moment because of that was a day when I was literally, why would you get depressed? You have the most comprehensive English collection in the world, because I'm still a collector. And when you have money that's burning a hole in your pocket to buy a little $50 or $60 box, and you can't buy that as any collector would, it is frustrating.
Yeah, it's very, very annoying when you see these people who are getting, 40, 50 boxes when there is supposed to be this limit. And the Pokemon Center, I've had the same thing as you, where it's like, oh, we have so many security walls you have to jump through to prove you're not a bot. And then it's like, well, clearly it's not working because the bots are getting through. These people have got way, way more than supposed to. And we had a case when Special Delivery Charizard was out. One of the ones where you had to get a code. We both ended up getting codes. Laura put her order in. I put my order in. A little while later, right before the codes expired, someone was selling codes online for like $4. So Laura was like, well, the stuff we want from the Pokemon Center anyway, should we just pay $4, get another code, get another Charizard? And I said, yeah. And it wouldn't even let Laura do another order because her account had already used one Charizard code. We ended up getting her boss to order it to his place because he didn't have an account. He hadn't used a Charizard code yet. And then when you also then see there's people who are like, oh, I have 100 Special Delivery Charizards because I bought it 100 accounts. And it's like, well, they either have to figure out what they're doing. They either have to just remove. I'd say remove the limits. They can't remove the limits because then two people would buy 10,000 each and there'd be none for anyone. But they really need to figure something out where these people who are botting are actually stopped. And if they Pokemon could pretty easily figure out who a lot of these people are. The people who are getting this stuff aren't hiding it, but they get their employees or they get other people under fake names, whatever, to do it. It's just I totally understand the frustration.
And maybe you could still, and you know what? This is not Walmart or Best Buy or whatever. This is Pokemon Center. You should be catering to the hobby. Make it a limit of one if you have to. Make it that much more difficult for the botters to make it, they've got to do what? 4 times as many that they'd have to do before. Whatever it takes, their customers, they don't care. I mean, again, I have no reason to vent. I'm venting on personal experience.
Yeah.
They're the one company that I bought sealed collection boxes from. They come to me. They have a damaged jumbo card inside. They will not take a return. So if, for under circumstances, you can't reach a customer person, service person there.
Yeah.
It is just a frustrating when this should be the front and center piece of the hobby for these things coming out. They're not cheap with their stuff. Boxes are $143 for a booster box or more.
Yeah.
But anyways, that just, I like to just show you guys that inside of me is still that collector that says, okay, yeah, I can go buy my exclusive Snorlax card or whatever it's going to be from someone on eBay, but I would have loved to just put away a couple of boxes as part of a collection, so that collection won't continue. And you know what'll happen going forward is I really won't buy from them anymore. Now I've learned my lesson. Sometimes you got to have it twice, and I'll just go buy the pieces of what I need from eBay, let other people break open the boxes, but that was frustrating. So,
I mean, one of the things is just simply they can't have competition for this stuff because for other Pokemon stuff, if you go to a store's website and their website's trash, you just I'm not going to buy this stuff from you anymore. I'll go to this other game store that's selling it. but the Pokemon Center has Pokemon Center exclusive stuff. So it's always, hey, it doesn't matter how bad we are. If you want this, you're buying it from us.
Exactly.
Or you're buying it from the person who got 70 and is charging 10 times the price or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's let I'm gonna rant now, okay? I didn't rant there. That was
that
not a
wasn't
rant.
the
That was
rant?
just
All right.
no.
Okay.
That was just a personal experience. But
All right. Okay.
on this week's version of the rant, I'm gonna talk about misprints, okay?
Okay.
Errors, misprints, the Facebook group, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, Dan? Can I just have 2 minutes to do that, please?
You can have 2 minutes around. I'm interested to see what this is going to be because, yeah.
Dan, I go out here on the misprints group, and here's what you're reading about. You're reading about these folks that love their misprints. They love their little dots, and I mean, you talked about the whooper, or whatever it was, or the whatever. I don't think it was a whooper. Was it last
It was
week?
Wooper.
But that was a repetitive error. These folks like the one-offs. They like the lines, the print line across. They like a cut, like where the card is actually slit down the center in some way and something's peeled off. One of the favorite words they use is acetone. Another word they use is crimps. It doesn't matter. It sounds like the Bloods and the Crips, like gang language or something. So Dan, I thought I would talk about it because what's going on with this whole miscut thing? Are these cards going to ever be worth a thing, Dan? Can you just stick a card on the ground and stamp your foot on it? It's going to be worth something. Is there actually crimp machines? There are people chiding people and not chiding people. And the thing is, can I go and can I find these things anywhere? Can I go in a non-Pokemon card collection and maybe not even find anything from Pokemon cards in the collection? What if I went to a flea market? What if the flea market was selling vintage cards that was 20 years old? Is it more likely that I would find misprints there, or more likely today, square cut corners, etc.? And what's the definition of a misprint? Is it a 1-off, a 2-off, a 10-off, a color bleed, a hollow bleed? The whole thing about this, Dan, is that and I think you understand, if there was a museum, let's say there was a museum and you could put this stuff all out in glass cases, which isn't to say that they would charge money to get into the museum or not. That's a whole different issue. But let's say you were bringing your kids, or you didn't have kids. You were just bringing your parents because you thought, hey, I'm going to show them what I do. So you walk in and you're looking, you don't see anything. What if it doesn't resonate with you? Maybe it's not a museum, Dan. You're on a cruise and they're trying to sell you Pokemon cards like they sometimes sell art on cruises. I don't know. The whole thing about it is, are you going to be swayed? Are you going to think to yourself that this is going to make a difference? Are you going to try to value this both personally, financially, economically, or possibly even spiritually, emotionally? I don't know that. And in the end of the day, when I look at these things, I just think to myself, are they doing the right thing or are they not? And I think some of them are and some of them aren't. But don't tell that to them, Dan. Don't tell that to them, because you'll get the fist in the face. You might get an invite to lunch. You might get so frustrated that your therapy appointment will be just discussing that entire Facebook group. So at the end of the day, I think you can understand what gets me so just frustrated about this whole thing. And I appreciate you listening to my rant.
Yeah. We'll not let them know. There's no way they could find out possibly what you've just said. This is definitely not going out publicly or anything.
Okay. All right, Dan. Thank you, buddy.
Do you feel better now?
Dan, I'm glad you let me get it off my chest. I really do. Thank you, buddy. Because after this whole week with the Pokemon Center, I feel a ton better. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, there's probably more conversation to have there, but let's not have it right now.
Okay, good.
I want to jump back. We briefly, with the Pokemon Center stuff, we mentioned people selling stuff for way, way more than they paid for it, which I think will segue nicely into the World Spectator passes. Because they did
saw some stuff, yeah.
They did the lotteries. I very luckily got my ticket in the first wave, because the waves they sent out as many emails as they could afford to sell as tickets they had, and then people had 72 hours to buy them, and then anyone who didn't buy them went back into the pool and they got passed down to people. So I got mine in my first one. One person I know got theirs in the second, which was good, but I think I know a lot more people who missed than got, basically. So Arcanine, which is the company that it's a program developed by some Pokemon judges, and Pokemon use them to sell tickets to their events. They use them for regionals, nationals, worlds, stuff like that. So they had to close the replies to their Twitter account, so when they tweet, you can't reply to it. because the replies were just full of people trying to sell the extra tickets. So one of my friends was who, luckily, I've got her a ticket now. She had already booked a trip to Japan, as a lot of people had before they found out it was a lottery. She said the best offer she was got was someone wanted $200 for their ticket, and this was someone whose kid had qualified, so they just had an extra ticket. They didn't even pay for it. I was speaking to someone at League last night, said that someone was trying to sell their ticket for $850. The replies to the Arcanine tweets before they closed them, people were saying they wanted like $650 for, again, a ticket that cost them $15 was the cost of the ticket. Arcanine even had to put out, because one of the things with it is you can buy up to 2 tickets if you win, which I did, so I get a friend in, but you have to be there to pick your tickets up. You couldn't buy 2 and have someone go and pick them up for you, so you couldn't sell them both and just say, okay, I'm not going to Japan. Arcanine said that people were buying the 2 tickets and then attempting to change the personal details on their account, presumably to match the personal details of whoever they've sold these tickets onto. And Arcanine said, hey, if you're doing this, we notice. Don't do it. So I'm assuming behind the scenes, some people got tickets cancelled for that, for trying to change their name to whoever was picking them up. But there are also people, I think, if people are getting these $800 prices, if anyone's actually paying that, if someone has 2 tickets, sell them both, get your $1,700, go to Japan, but you just have a holiday in Japan. Like, there are definitely people doing that. They just aren't even wanting to go to Worlds. They're going to go, they're going to pick their tickets up, give both the tickets to the people who've bought them, and they're just going to go have a week in Japan.
Yeah, and I mean that makes sense. And the reason that people will pay that money is because of how much the trip would cost, anyways, right? If you were already planning $5,000-$10,000 trip and you don't have a ticket, you're certainly going to pay an extra $500 or $600, despite the fact we wish you wouldn't, but you do.
I mean, there are a lot of people who, as soon as the date and venue were announced, they booked non-refundable flights and hotels. So it's people who've got a couple of $1,000 potentially already sunk into this trip.
Right.
Other thing is, a lot of the people buying them, I assume, are people just wanting to go to the Pokemon Center, buy a ton of stuff, and resell it. I'm assuming there's a lot of people like that, because you can book slots for the Pokemon Center without a Spectator pass, but I believe the spectators get priority. So people who have the badges, they haven't opened that yet, but there's going to be something coming out where people who have Spectator badges can book their time slot, and then it opens up to the public, whatever time slots are left. So I think we're going to end up with a lot of Spectator badges bought but not collected. We're going to end up with a lot bought and people not actually going in to see the tournament. I think there are going to be a huge lack of people actually spectating the World's event. I think there's going to be a lot of people who just are getting the badges to do the other stuff, and it really, really sucks for a lot of players and stuff, because there's a tournament called the Open, which they're having, which is a big event. I think it starts on the second day of Worlds. So if you don't progress past day 1, you can play in the Open, and if you didn't qualify for Worlds, you could play in the Open. But people who didn't qualify need a Spectator badge to be able to play in that event, and that event gives out quite a lot of championship points towards qualifying for next year's event, at least from what I've heard. So there's no good way for the ticket situation to be done, because we're at a point now with Pokemon where there's always going to be more people wanting to go than they can reasonably fit in the event. But this way just felt awful. Like, it felt like so many people were applying for tickets without ever wanting to go.
I think, Dan, one thing they could do, there may not be any good way to do it, and I completely understand that, but one thing they could do is actually have a thread out there in public that says, if you attempt to resell these, rather than let them go back in the lottery or something, and we find out, you will be banned. So that would imply families that got extra tickets for their kids, blah, 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 whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, or sell them at face value. But if we find out, the threat would deter a whole bunch of people, just in case they would actually
Probably,
be found to have
yeah,
done something like that.
yeah. I mean, originally what we thought it was going to be was that, like, when I signed up, when I bought my two, I thought I was going to have to, put in all my details, and then I thought I was going to have to put in the details of whoever my second person was, and printing names on them or whatever. But then if they print names on them, you then have to check everyone's ID every time they're coming in and out. It's quite lucky that actually didn't happen, because the person I was originally giving my second ticket to, because Laura had arranged it with another judge friend of hers, I wanted a ticket, he had someone who wanted a ticket. We just said if either of us get it, then we'll give the other one. But then luckily, the mother of the other judge got hers in the second wave, so I was able to pass mine on to someone else, and they were able to get a second one for someone else too. So luckily that didn't happen, but I did think that's what was going to happen originally. I thought that's why there was such the tight 72-hour turnaround. But honestly, just I don't know what the solution is on any of this.
Yeah. Well,
But
you know what?
I mean,
At least you got
I'm
yours.
going.
So.
I got mine this
Yes.
year. Yeah, well, so I'll be there in person trying to buy you trophy cards, and we'll see what happens.
Good. And I'm also interested. You can do your live stream reporting while you're there and talk about whether or not it does appear that there were less spectators or whatever when it was all said and done.
Yeah, I'll definitely be filming and doing videos while
Yeah.
I'm out there. So
yeah. Okay. Card party. Just a quick follow up. Not sure what
Yeah.
you heard or didn't hear. Two things that I read or heard just when I kind of looked out there for information. This was the influencer event that we talked about in a previous video that was happening in Anaheim last weekend. The two things I heard are one of the vendors at the event had a Team Rocket booster box stolen from their table, so they were really upset about that and trying.
I didn't see any of the details, but I did hear that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just upsetting, but not unexpected these days with how crazy the prices are of Pokemon, and people will do anything. And I'm sure there's many folks that get in those shows that are constantly distracting and have ways of trying to go for something off a table. The other thing I'll mention is that they apparently did or tried to set a world record. Maybe they did set a world record.
They did.
I think of the number of packs that were opened all at the same time, sitting in a room.
Most number of people opening a pack at the same time. So I don't know what the number was, but they had a room full of people, and they gave everyone a pack, and it was everyone opened a pack at the same time.
Yeah, that was cute. I mean, I thought that was cute. They thought maybe there was 100 people, but it's not a record that we would have any trouble breaking as I read about it, because I just thought if I could easily assemble my, all of the ex-boyfriends of my daughter in a single room in about 5 minutes.
I'm sure your daughter would love that.
And it would amount.
Happy.
There's probably 200 easy, and they just hand them a packs of, Champions Path, because that seems to be a pack that nobody wants. And we just, open those up and maybe set the record. So I know they'll probably try and do that next year when they do this again. So we may just have to watch that, and I'll keep my daughter's boyfriends on the list and see where we go with that, Dan.
All right. Well, I think if we're going to break a Guinness World Record, let's figure out the that collection one first, and then maybe we can look to the other one.
All right, good.
I'll say from what I saw for it, I expected it to be a lot of age 20s to 30s collectors, partly because of the price of the tickets and stuff. There were a lot of like parent and child people there. There was a lot of younger people there. I'm guessing because they're fans of the YouTube videos and the streams or whatever, the content of these people. But I just figured that the price would be off-putting to a lot of parents, like whether parents. But I guess maybe that's just how it is. Like maybe parents now are more understanding of. Yes, for you going to see these YouTubers is the equivalent of going to see a big musician in concert or whatever.
Right.
I know when I went to YouTube events, like that once I was able to afford the tickets and stuff on my own. I know that my parents would not have understood if I was like, yeah, instead of going to see this musician or a comedian that I like, I want to go and meet these people who make videos on the internet.
Yeah, and Dan, I think that when you become a parent one day, if you do, you don't have to. I really don't mind at all. A lot of times, some of the most happy friends, some of the best, happiest friends I have are without children because they can enjoy all the fruits of their purchases with toys for themselves. And gosh, I think that's wonderful.
Let me
I'd
tell you,
probably, Dan, I'd
be
rethink it again if
careful.
I had a
I'd say
chance.
be careful because Laura's parents might have you killed for that comment because
All right. Sorry, Laura.
they want
Sorry,
us to be
Laura's
having
parents.
kids at some point.
Okay. But yes, if you do have kids, you'll understand that when it comes down to it, just kind of spend anything at the moment because you just want them to be happy. You overspend and it is what it is. So that's probably why. But yeah, well, hopefully maybe some other people went and will give us some more feedback on it. But you're right. I saw a lot of parents and kids as well. So.
Yeah, and I saw there was a lot of stuff I didn't really know exactly what it was going to be beforehand. Like I just saw some of the adverts that you shared with me. It looked like there was a lot of panels and stuff happening. It wasn't just people talking about collecting. I think there was a lot of talk about how they became YouTubers and then making stuff their full-time job. So a lot of the panels like you would get at bigger conventions and stuff and more traditional conventions. Which I mean, panels. I've been to similar panels in my time at like at PAX or at other things. So I didn't realize there was stuff like that going on. So it seemed like overall a good event. It is. I would say it wouldn't be my cup of tea. It wouldn't be something I would personally enjoy, but it definitely looked like a great event.
Yeah.
I was like same weekend. A thing we mentioned quite a way back on this podcast. The Newcastle card show was also the same weekend, and it looks like they did pretty well. They raised a decent amount of money for charity. It looks like they had a lot of nice vendors and stuff in, so it was great to see that they did a lot of good stuff as well. And I'm assuming that them and Card Party will be having multiple events again in future. So
yeah, good.
Always good to see more events and stuff happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep the publicity in the right way. So
yeah.
Dan, I don't know if I got anything else on my list. I'm
right.
just looking over here. I'm pretty good. You let me rant and you let me do other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. My Wordle streak continues, but I found out from that one little comment I made on Wordle that nobody has any inclination to keep any. The social media situation today, it decreases everyone's attention span, and the busyness of life gets in the way of whatever you want to do. So to try to do something on a continuous daily basis where you have a pressure to do it to keep the numbers growing, no one's going to do that. And that's why no one even responded. And that reminded me back, Dan, you might remember this years ago, when there was this concept of streaking. Now, Dan, when I talk about 30 or 40 or 50 years ago streaking, that's when people ran naked, okay? And I love that part of life. That was my funnest part of life because
But that's not what we're talking about right now. I'm clarifying that's no. But thank
we are
Christ
not
for that.
talking
Okay.
about that.
Right.
We are
okay.
talking about streaking in the sense that you will remember this. There was a social media thing where you had to make contact with your friend every single day. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that was only a couple of years ago. I think that was a Snapchat thing. I think that is. I think I'm slightly too old to have experienced that personally, but I mean,
it wasn't no 2 years ago, but it might have been 5 years ago. Okay.
Maybe. I guess. I mean, I have a Snapchat.
Time flies when you got a pandemic.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
So I don't think anybody still does that. Nobody streaks anymore with their friends because it was too difficult to keep it going. And so, at 12:01 in the morning doing a stupid Wordle thing, of course. But so that's why. So yeah, you know what, Dan, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. You do a little bit of this set, you do a little bit of that set, and eventually, maybe before you get into your wheelchair, you might finish the Sun and Moon or the XY era. You're already on the Sword and Shield now and the Silver, battle. So, Dan, nobody can do anything on a continuous basis, which is why my set lady build stuff. I buy a set, I put it away, and it's done until I have to deal with the variants. That's all. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, that was not how I thought that this podcast was going to end, but I guess when we're talking about lower attention spans, a big thank you to anyone who has listened to all of this all the way through. Same with the previous episodes. We know a decent amount of people do actually listen to these all the way through, and we're very, very thankful for that because at times I can imagine it's very hard to keep your attention on this.
Very hard.
All right, yeah, that's going to be it for today. David, go and enjoy Father's Day with your children and your anniversary with your wife. And I guess I'll see you next week.
Wait.
Oh, wait. Oh, what's happening now?
We're not quite over just yet. This is the time in the Ferris Bueller's Day Off when we say it is time for you to go. Thank you so much. Do not forget to subscribe, to link up, to comment, to put the code in 65 and a DM to me, and you're going to
Yeah.
be entered in the drawing. We're going to announce it next week. Thank you so much. And now you can leave. Leave. Don't stay here anymore. Why are you still here? But now Dan and I are going to play true or false for the people that still want to be here.
Oh, are we?
Because
Okay.
Dan didn't get one ready for me this week, so I happen to have a backup ready for him.
All right. I thought we were skipping this one this week because you said you had to go soon. But all right.
I have to go soon, but I
All
don't
right.
see enough ruckus in the house. I'm
All
not
right,
getting
okay.
any terroristic stare my direction just yet, okay?
All right. Okay. Let's get onto this then.
Dan, number one, of course, what you have to do is you have to tell me if this is a true thing that happened or not a true thing
Yeah.
that happened, okay?
Yeah.
Dan, let's start with a real simple one, all right? I had a police escort to my college graduation.
No. There's no way you did.
All right, Dan, I actually did have a police escort to my college graduation, and here's what happened.
Okay.
We were on the side. We were driving to the graduation. We were not. I'm always on time, but I wasn't early, and we had a problem with the car, and so we ended up on the side of the freeway in my college graduation gear, and we're ready to go. And guess what? Well, we're stuck, and so here come the police officers to try to help out. And it wasn't just one; it ended up like three. And when they found out that I was on the way, I had my I guess I had someone, and I had like three other people in there, including my parents, were in the car with me. And they said, you know what, let's make this fun for you. And they actually drove us in the police cars over to the graduation, so I would make it, and it was a fun way to enter and remember my college graduation. So Dan, that was true. You said false. You're 0 for 1
You
today.
start that by saying, "Oh, here's a real easy one." How's that an easy one?
Well, okay, fair enough. Maybe it wasn't an easy one. I was thinking about it was easy in my description. I didn't have a lot to say. I just said I was escorted to my graduation by police. Okay.
Okay.
Dan, here's the second one.
Yep.
My dad gave me my first cigarette when I was 5 years old.
Okay, I'll guess true on that one.
Dan, that is true. My dad decided he was going to teach me how bad cigarette smoking would be for me over my lifetime. And so he taped
At
me.
5?
He put a cigarette in my mouth and he said, puff it. I was 5 years old. And he said, puff it, and told me what to do. Dan, I probably sat there and coughed up a lung for the next hour or more. It was horrific. And from that point forward, I could literally not even be around cigarette smoke for the remainder of my life. That's how impactful and detrimental, or in a good way, probably not detrimental, to my future with. And of course, what did my parents do? They smoked heavily, and so I had to get out of the way when they were doing that with their friends and parties. But Dan, you are 1-1, so now we go for the ultimate tiebreaker. Okay?
Can we just clarify that we don't recommend anyone does that to their children?
That is right.
Even if it worked for you, please do not give a 5-year-old a cigarette. I can kind of
100
understand maybe at like age 12 or something, here is how bad smoking is, try it and you'll never want to do it. But 5 is really, really young for that lesson.
Yeah, and it is Father's Day, so I think it's important that I do remember that my dad was doing the best he can. But Dan, so this goes along with don't drop cats.
All right.
Don't give 5-year-olds cigarettes to indulge in. Okay.
Yeah, that is your weekly advice. We should not have had to give you.
That's correct. That's
a
right.
weekly
That's
thing
right.
you should have just known.
Yes.
All right.
All right, Dan. Here we go. Championship point.
All right.
Dan, I once, here it is, Dan. I drove from California to Colorado with my wife. I sat in the passenger side of the car, and she slept in the car while she was driving. And I drove the car from the passenger seat with my leg across the console on the gas pedal.
I'm just looking at a map of where Colorado is in comparison to California. Right, that can't be possible, can it? I mean, like I said, with an automatic, I guess it's technically possible, but not that far. I'm going to say false on that. I think that's way too far to have even attempted that.
Dan, that's true.
Oh my God.
And Dan, it is absolutely ridiculous that we ever tried to do that. So here's what happened.
Yeah.
She had a stick shift, and I didn't know how to drive it. Okay, so basically,
How?
she started driving. She would get us up and running, and then at some point she went to sleep because she was too tired to drive anymore, and we had to make headway to get out to a business location in Denver, Colorado. So while she was sleeping in the driver's seat, I was foot on the gas pedal across the thing, my hand on the steering wheel, and I was driving with instructions to her that if there was cops or somebody passing by, she would have to wake up or act like she was awake or whatever. Because once we're in gear back then, and I was, of course, I actually learned to drive a shift at some point, but didn't at that time know how. So I just kept driving, and that was my way of feeling like I could handle it without being afraid of the stick shift, where we made progress and she was sleeping, and we just kept driving across the vast emptiness that was Wyoming and whatever other couple of states we ended up going through.
Well, that's
Most dangerous thing.
That is terrifying.
It was terrifying, but we did the whole way. We went the whole damn way.
God, okay. I was thinking, I even said potentially theoretically possible in an automatic. The fact that you did that in a manual is ridiculous.
Yes, yeah, that's the reason we did it. Had it been automatic, it wouldn't even been an issue. I would have just been driving.
Yeah.
But the other reason
if you ever had to brake? Like, it only work as long as the road was completely clear?
I was pretty clear, yeah. So I don't know that we thought it through. Dan, I'm not sure the plan was well thought out. It was just,
doesn't sound
it was the way it worked out. Dan, by the way, in our true or false games, you're 0 for 2 weeks in a row now. So you better learn more about me as soon as possible, or start quizzing me on your life.
Yeah,
okay?
I'll have something ready for next week. All right, is that really the end now?
That is the end. We're really over.
All right. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed whatever that was. Hopefully no one emulates David's life in any way.
No, you want to survive long enough to keep your collection growing.
Yeah, don't drive from the passenger side of a car while feeding your 5-year-old cigarettes.
Yes, no.
All right, well, if you did make it this far, to the 3 people who made it this far, thank you, and we will see you again next week.
Happy Father's Day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who chooses to support me on Patreon. If you'd like to get involved, help support the channel, and see some behind-the-scenes content, click on the link in the description. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching. Check out some more videos right here.
And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome Pokemon content from DJ Gigabyte.
Gotta catch 'em all!